Jet, stop! Or you will miss Hearth's warming. See, I told you I should have controlled the time lever. I've used it more than you, albeit only twice before you, but still more than you, and I'm better at controlling it. Well, it would appear we've arrived on the 20th of January. Based on the fact there's no other version of us, it would appear that we stuck around. We didn't go back and make it so we were here. You know what? I don't even feel like doing a review. You can do my holiday special. Knock yourself out. Comics in the review room. Don't forget to set the back wall to holiday setting. I'm gonna go sleep off this cider that I drank. Hearthstorming Eve 2014. Ugh, time travel just makes things so much more complicated.
As the various holiday seasons approach and pass us by so they can continue ignoring us for the rest of the year, it seems only My Little Pony dares to ask the truly hard questions. How can we get people to prefer magical ponies to something? This is an admirable thought, but like Nearly Headless Nick, was executed poorly. No, that will not be my last Harry Potter joke. This is a zero-context review, meaning that I will be taking points off even if something I complain about is justified by some other bit of canon. Mercy is for the weak. So let's get to the actual story part of the story. Spoiler alert! No comprendo que estás hablando. Para spoilers, oprime el número 2, por favor. The story begins in some mythic town the hair dye industry has by the balls. The preposterously named Sunset is depressed, what with being friendless and alone at Christmas time. Sunset seems to have been a horse at one point, and no one is freaking out about that. Applejack, having noticed the plot wasn't going to get us anywhere soon, decides that the only cure for depression is a slumber party. She turns on the bat signal and everyone assembles. Sunburned hooker, frostbitten lesbian, severe jaundice, and the obligatory white girl. The sheer number of skin conditions in this high school is wholly suspicious. It's at this point, the plot finally realizes that the book started without it and rears its ugly head in the form of My Stable, which is about the worst thing in this book if you're me, but probably just okay if you read this recreationally. But come on, My Stable? That's just lazy. Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice, no one questions slumber parties as a cure for clinical depression, and they all make their holiday plans in the span of a single, pretty short conversation. Pinkie plans the first night of shenanigans, and I guess kidnaps Sunset, but everything is all set up when they get there, so I have to assume that her room is always covered in confetti balloons and punch, as well as a recreational dose of cocaine. From here, we see Pinkie's sister deliver enough pizza to make a brave man weep. 16 is far too many pizzas for 6 people, especially when we only see Pinkie eating them. If we accept the conservation of matter as a thing, there must be an implied scene here in which Pinkie just decimates her bathroom in a fashion that terrifies me in a very profound way. From here, we get a phone call from Applejack's sister that for some reason kickstarts the plot. We learn that one time as a kid she played in the mud with some pigs, as kids are wont to do. Luckily, everyone falls asleep listening to that, so we'll never have to hear about it again, thought I. Everyone goes to bed except for Sunset, who spends some time writing in Tom Riddle's diary. Meanwhile, back at the plot, everyone looks exhausted, even though Sunset was the only person who stayed up late. But stay on target. Someone going by the name of Anon A. Miss, who deserves to be kicked into an active volcano for that alone, shows up on My Stable to post that embarrassing story about Applejack, causing every side character to break out in G-rated insults. It was at this point that I immediately suspected Sunset to be behind this, guaranteeing not only that everyone in the world will blame it on her, but also that she will be the one who finds out who's really behind it. Why anyone would one day decide to roll up their sleeves and diligently ruin someone's life is an exercise that's left for the reader, as we're taken off to someone accusing Sunset of that thing I just said. It's like I can tell the future. Applejack is pretty bummed by all the bullshit, but as we know, slumber parties cure that. So we arrive at a second goddamn slumber party, and I realize that even though this comic is set in the dead of winter, not a single person is dressed weather appropriately. No wonder the lesbian is frostbitten. Rarity marks this occasion by doing the most realistic thing I've ever seen in these comics and throwing her annoying little sister the hell out of her party. Pinkie grabs a cloak from somewhere and suggests the telling of ghost stories, but Sunset smugly points out that she can read stories from another dimension. I mean, I can't do that, and it's cool if you can, but that doesn't mean you get to flaunt your hand-sized ego up my ass. For reasons I don't care to find out, no one freaks out about Sunset having magical powers. Fluttershy compares giving your soul to Voldemort to feast on to texting, which is wrong. It's not like texting another world. It's literally writing a letter to another world. We saw it happen. You don't need to explain this again. You didn't have to explain it the first time. You did have to explain why it matters, but you didn't and you won't, so let's move on. Pinkie sings an objectively horrible song and breaks a nearby door with the severe tenacity of her dancing. Pinkie Pie 12, door 0. You would think that having broken 12 doors with only the power of dance would be a decent clue to stop dancing. This seems to be the perfect time to stage an intervention, but everyone got distracted by some clothes and took some selfies instead. This comic seems to have some grim ideas about what women are like. After 2 pages dedicated to a literal game of dress-up, everyone goes to sleep except for Sunset, who once again decides to write the Dark Lord all about the fun she's been having now that she has friends, as if daring cosmic anvils to fall from on high and crush her dreams. Several days later, Sunset arrives at school and is greeted by her pissed-off friends. Yes, it would seem that the bullshit from both slumber parties made its way to my stable, turning that whole group into the laughingstock of wherever they are. Turns out, nothing ruins a reputation quite like being yourself. Rather than having any rational discussion or doing any investigative work whatsoever, everyone decides the only sensible course of action is to end their friendship with Sunset as quickly and harshly as possible. Fuck. That's kind of really fucked up, thought I, as everyone abandoned Sunset weeping in the hall in a pile of school supplies. Somehow, it's only at this point that anyone decides to look into what the hell is actually going on. Sunset does the only actual detective work we see in this comic that features a mystery when she decides to interrogate Trixie. For some reason, it didn't occur to anyone that she might be behind this, in spite of the fact that she hates Sunset and her former friends, likes to cause trouble, and is a massively self-satisfied bitch. Unfortunately, Trixie turns out to be innocent, causing Sunset to give up. As if the stakes weren't high enough before, Anonymous decides to expand her criminal empire from pissing off a small, isolated group to pissing off everyone. Why anyone would one day decide to roll up their sleeves and diligently ruin everyone's life is an exercise that's left for the reader. Meanwhile, back at the Hall of Justice, Sunset gives a bit of her soul to you-know-who tells her the legend about Wendigos to try to explain why everyone's come down with a case of the Rambling Stupids. Side note on Wendigo lore, they don't feed on fighting and hatred as much as they feed on, people. But who cares about that, thought I. Thus begins the grand adventure. A supernatural foe to defeat to teach us all a valuable lesson about cyberbullying and friendship awaits, or more accurately, doesn't. It would seem that the sole purpose of the soul-stealing book is to show us that this exists in the same universe as the comics rather than for, telling a good story or something. Seems people don't need a reason to be dicks to one another. Thank you for nothing, you flying rhino. So yeah, no one's happy and life sucks. Sunset gets trapped by an angry mob but fends them off by running away. I guess they weren't really that bothered by all their secrets being online. Regardless, Sunset finds her old friends getting day drunk in a cafe, and they talk things out like humans do. They even go so far as to figure out who's really behind everything. Children. This is why we should hate children. They apologize and everything turns out fine, which leads nicely into the moral center of the story. If you even suspect someone you know is a cyberbully, immediately and publicly ostracize them in a humiliating way, unless they're family. If they're family, it's cool.
Well, that certainly was an interesting review. I caught the end of that. Okay. Well, I guess Jet decided not to give it a rating, so based on what I heard, he would probably give it 3 or less stars. He uses stars, right? That's what he used last time. Either way, that is Jet's 2 bits on this comic. Tell him your 2 bits in the comments below. And while you're down there, why not suggest a possible future spoiler alert? And don't forget to like and subscribe. You can also support my 2 bits on Patreon. Well, I'm Comic Sans. That was Jet Fever. And I will see you next time when I review Friends Forever number 9. Featuring, of all ponies, Granny Smith and the Flim Flam Brothers. And have a happy belated hearthwarming and a joyous new year.